Welcome everyone. My name is Phil Flora. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Leopard Solutions. For those that don't know, I'm honored to have Katherine Byrnes joining. She's the head of our client experience, or director of client experience here with Leopard Solutions. You've been with us now almost 3 years, right, Kath?
3 years, coming up to 3 years. That's right.
Time flies, time flies. And of course, Laura Leopard's here as well, CEO and founder of Leopard Solutions. And she has a lot of exciting news to share for those firms that have made the 2023 Leopard Law Firm Index, which is the focus of today's webinar. So couple of quick housekeeping items before we jump in and celebrate the news. For those that missed it, if you're one of the few then, on, I believe it was January 26th or so, we did our State of the Industry webinar. We had over 600 people register, over 400 people attend. We had a great discussion. I'm going to drop into the chat the link to our website where you can download a copy of the slides, and we're also putting together a white paper which should be available in the next week or so. There's also the recording on there as well, so you guys can take a look at that. A lot of great discussions and conversations and pieces about the data from 2023 and growth and headcount and so on and so forth. So take a look at that. You can also, while you're on that page, you'll be able to click on and register for our newsletter, where you can be updated on all the news and information that we do put out, and all the insights and great thought leadership. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura so we can get right to the crust of it all. Laura, take it away.
Drum roll, please. So I am Laura Leopard, and I have been with Leopard since about 1864. Sometimes that's what it feels like. No. But we are very happy to announce our winners, or the top firms of 2023 in our Leopard Law Firm Index. We're going to tell you just a little bit about the index so you can understand, how we got these scores, where they came from, and why we're doing this at all. So I'm just going to start my little slideshow and look at some newspapers, because this was once how all news was delivered. And once printed, it became a relic. All things that change throughout the day, the newspaper could never change, right? It could never reflect news as it happened. It reflected a moment in time, a moment in the past. And each year we see firms in that big top 200 list merge. We see firms close or come dangerously close to closing, but still they're in that top 200, ranking. How can that be? Well, those ranking systems are not designed for the fast-paced and changeable world that we live in. Here at Leopard, we believe in data. Data answers questions. It makes connections. It solves riddles, and it is a sound basis for good decisions. Whether you need to convince a client to join your firm or decide which firm to acquire, data can root your decisions in fact. When we developed our ranking system, we really wanted it to reflect the world in real time. A static, once-a-year ranking just simply can't reflect change as the world changes. Our ranking system was developed on hard data, not self-reported financials or surveys. We included hard, quantifiable data points that reflect the health and stability of the firm, and we assign a score in real time. It captures where a firm is today, and that is valuable information indeed. Now, these are the criteria that we use in our ranking system, and we're just going to go over them quickly so it's very clear why we included them. Promotions are important to a firm. They promote stability, they help in retention and recruitment. The RPL metric is used wherever 5 years worth of revenue per lawyer data is available, because it can show a rise or a fall in productivity and income. We measure ROI for this index only of recent hires. We're not using the traditional 3 to 5 year span that we use in our ROI reports on the platform. How well they do within the last 12 months of hiring is important. If they can't retain new talent, it signals a problem within the firm. Numerous studies have shown that women possess impressive leadership skills. They score high on emotional intelligence. They have well-developed soft skills needed for effective leadership and are extremely effective in a crisis. That's why we have included, as of this past year, the percentage of women partners. There is substantial research to show that diversity brings many advantages to a business, and that includes increased profitability, more creativity, stronger governance, and better problem-solving abilities. And that is why it's the base metrics of our Leopard Law Firm Index. Having a deep well of experienced attorneys at your firm ensures a stable culture, and it promotes less turnover within your firm. Is the firm growing? Is it remaining steady? Is it losing ground? Whether a firm is in the negative for headcount or riding high in growth, this metric is key to determining the stability and health of the firm. Our index scores, they change every week. It is dynamic and it changes as the firms change. Kirkland & Ellis is at the top today, but that might not be true next week or next month as we account for attrition, changes in diversity, and other week-to-week factors. For today's webinar, we reviewed a firm's average scores in all factors over the entire course of 2023. And that is how we achieved our best of list for 2023. Latham & Watkins was #1 in our rankings for 2023, having had a perfect score of 500 for 7 out of the 12 months. Gibson Dunn entered our top 10 from 12th place. They moved into 8th place this year thanks to their overall improvement in retaining laterals. They hired 157 laterals and retained 153. Plus, they had a 2% improvement in their ethnic diversity numbers. They're now at 22% through a combination of entry-level and lateral hiring. They also saw a 3% improvement in their partner gender diversity, jumping up to 28%, and they did that primarily by promoting within the firm. Skadden jumped from 40 to 10th in 2023. They saw a growth of 3%, plus a 2% improvement in their ethnic diversity numbers, moving to 25%, and they accomplished this predominantly through entry-level hiring. While there was a shuffling in the ranks, most firms increased their average scores over the previous year. This was largely driven by improvement in ROI for both entry-level and lateral hiring. While most firms saw slower growth in 2023, they look to be much more strategic in their hiring in this past year, and they are retaining these attorneys more often. Holland & Knight and Skadden actually increased growth over 2022. Holland & Knight via the Waller-Lansden merger, while Skadden continues their trend of investing in entry-level hires, 166 entry-level hires this past year and 67 lateral hires. After a growth of 8% in 2022, Kirkland declined by average of 3.3% in 2023, causing them to drop just a nudge in our rankings. 9 out of our top 10 firms are between 20 and 26% in their diversity numbers, and they have an increased year over year by an average of 1%. This is contributing to their higher Leopard Law Firm Index scores. Looking at firms ranked from 11 to 20, you'll see the arrows on the left indicate a change in ranking, and the arrows on the right show how their scores moved. Only Debevoise dropped down in ranking, but all scores went up compared to the prior year. 7 new entries into the top 20 with Jones Day and Paul Weiss saw the biggest improvements. Ogletree Dinkins is the lowest ranked AM law firm at 77 that moves into our top 20. More on these to come. Now, these firms gained the most average points in our index for 2023. Harnell Parkins climbed in our index on the back of a big growth year. 2022 saw a decline of 17%, but 2023 saw an average growth of 34%, driven by a strategic acquisition of Selman Brightman's litigation team. However, in our current index, their ROI for their 2023 lateral hires now sits at a low 77%, pushing them back out of the rankings in the current online index. Paul Weiss in 2023 showed good average growth through an equal combination of entry-level and lateral hires. Their ROI on all hires improved. Most notably, entry-level hires improved by 6% year over year, and all graduate hires from 2023, that's 108 associates. They're still at the firm. Paul Weiss, their ethnic diversity has improved by 2.5%. That's up to 25.5% of US-based attorneys. The story across this whole group is one of turning the tide from declines in 2022 to growth in 2023, combined with better retention across the board. Now, comparing our index to the AM Law Top 200, this past year saw 60% of the AM Law Top 200 firms decrease in points, and 15% of them decreased in status. There are 40 AM Law ranked firms that do not make the top 200 in our index for various factors. Remember that many saw layoffs in 2023, and those layoffs will affect their score. These firms are not ranked in the AM Law Top 200, but they are in our Top 200 index, and let's see why. I can start with Denton's, who has excellent scores for tenure, gender partner diversity, and ROI on their recent hires. The litigation firm, the 440 attorney firm, Wood Smith Henning Berman, their ethnic diversity is now at 25%. And that is 6% higher than the current AM Law 200 average. Their women partnership, 38%, it's 9% better than the AM Law 200 average, and they grew by 14% in 2023. O'Hagan Meyer grew by 30% on average, 73% for the whole year. They made a concerted effort to pick up attorneys from the short-lived Doherty Lorton firm. This list continues, and you will see some very recognizable names, and they all made our top 200 list for 2023. There is organic growth, and then there is growth due to mergers and acquisitions. So, for instance, Maynard Cooper Gale merged with Nexen Pruitt to form a new firm, and all of the firms with a check mark here underwent a merger in 2023. Mergers can add a growth bonus we kind of track those separately so that we can dive into the details in our past merger report. Maynard Cooper Gale merged with Nexen Pruitt to form Maynard Nexen PC. Now we track this by retaining the Maynard Cooper Gale firm in the Leopard database. Then we add the Nexen Pruitt attorneys, and we add them with the status of merger. Therefore, we can track that 186 attorneys that joined at signing. And today, 96% of those attorneys are still there. Very little separates the top 100 in retained experience, but these 8 firms had a perfect score. indicating the largest number of tenured attorneys. Now, this is a complex algorithm taking into account the number of attorneys and how many days they've been at the firm. This really speaks to the experience within the firm, as well as consistency in firm culture. Kabuki Draper has long been known as a diverse firm, and they continued that commitment by increasing their diverse ranks by 3.1% year over year. Linklater's increased by 3.2%. Debevoise and Davis Polk were not in our top 10 for ethnic diversity last year, but increases of 1.8% and 2.2% respectively were enough to increase their rank. Keep in mind that the AmLaw 200 overall stayed the same from 2022 to 2023, and being at 19% ethnically diverse. And although they didn't make this list, the most notable improvement was Allen and Overy, with an increase of 3.7%, taking them to be 26% diverse in their U.S. offices. Fragomen, Kabuki Draper, Hanson Bridget, Quinteros Pretro appear on both top 10 diversity lists. Freshfields made the biggest move up in the ranks from outside our top 10 last year, with a 3.6% increase in women partners, Yahoo. 40% of those were promoted from within. Day Pitney also moved into this top 10 with a 3.5% increase. Now, these were evenly split between lateral hires and promotions from within. Littler Mendelsohn stands out on this list for nurturing talent, with 89% of their new women partners coming from internal promotions. Although not in our top 10, Rivkin Rader had the biggest percentage increase year over year, jumping from 23.9% to 30.2%. Looking at ROI scores, yes, these are very good, but we expect these to be good. We expect them to be 98, 99, 100%, because for this purpose, we're only looking at the past 12 months. Now, Venable is the most improved of this group. In 2022, their average lateral ROI was just 87.3%, and that certainly went up this past year. While we expect ROI after a single year to be high, that 97, 100%, however, we always see firms where this is just not the case. So here we see a live example of AmLaw firms with at least 40 lateral hires in the past 12 months who have already seen 25% of those hires depart. We also take a longer view in our ROI reports. We're using ABA data that estimates it takes about 3 years to get your return on investment for an associate or counsel hire, and about 5 years for a partner hire. The chart above tracks a single firm over these time frames, and if we assume that the cost of a associate hire is $350,000, a partner hire is $500,000, it shows the expense of losing those hard gain hires. And that's real money, folks. Whether you earn it or save it, it's all real money. Entry-level hires. How well you do with entry-level hires matters just as much as for lateral hires. How are they integrated at the firm? And there are many factors to consider, right? There's the location they were hired in. Is it the same location that the law school was based in? The partner that they work under, and the particular school that they went to. In general, students from a top 10 school have rather lower retention rates than their unranked counterparts. Competition drives poaching, and some marquee name schools are more likely to be targets than others for poaching. So we wanted to talk a little about that RPL score, right? Because we are looking at RPL over 5 years, and we really wanted to sort of illustrate how we do it and why it matters. So here you have an AmLaw firm that's in the top 200, represented in green, and we see Jenner Block in blue. Well, Jenner Block has a 6.21% score for 2022. The other firm, 5.91%, relatively similar, right? Not too far apart. But what makes the difference here is that 5-year span. You can look at that other firm represented by the green bars, and you see big swings going on in that firm, while Jenner Block is relatively steady, right? So the steadier the firm with that RPL, the higher score they're going to get in our index. We're looking for steady, healthy firms. The percentage of partnership promotions is calculated by the number of promotions versus the average number of associates. And this has really the lowest impact out of all the different factors. But as with other factors, we are looking at the average percentage of each month and taking into account all the prior 12 months of promotions. We congratulate those who made our top 200 list for 2023. And to see an updated ranking where they are today, you can just go right to our website under that resources tab and pull up the law firm index. And you can remember, this is updated every week. You'll see numbers change. Once in a while, you'll see a score change. You'll see firms go up. You'll see firms go down. But this is a real-time look at the health and stability of law firms across the country. Almost every firm in our database has a score. We have to actually monitor a firm for a full 12 months before they go into our index, because we need to watch them over a 12-month period before we have enough data to give them a meaningful score. So almost every firm has a score, and other firms will soon have scores and start appearing in our index. On our website, you will see the Leopard Top 250. It's a little bit of an expanded list. And if you are a BI Suite client, you can see it in the BI Suite. If you have Firmscape, you can see those rankings in our Firmscape report as well. So we try to let people know all the important information in several spots throughout the database. But congratulations to all the firms named as a Leopard Law Firm Index Top 200. There will be badges you can share on social. There will be a press release going out later today, but we congratulate you all. And there you have it.
And I think, yeah, so just to reiterate, because obviously our support team is in the BI tool all the time, looking and showing people where the firm index report is. And, you know, if you're ever using the coaches corner, we now link to that score. I think that when I speak to people at law schools and I speak to people who are recruiting, oh, we've got a great culture. We've got a great culture. Come to our firm. We've got a great culture. And there's so many ways to look at it. But here's like, all right, one score, one little aspect. But this aspect, you can see now what goes into that score. It is not small. It is not a trifle. Yeah. It's a lot of aspects. And I think I'm really interested in the ROI numbers. I think the theme this year was that if you had good growth combined with that ROI, you could go up in our rankings. And I think you've had people come to you, Laura, in the past and say, oh, but we wanted to get rid of those attorneys. So that's not fair. But what have you said to that?
Well, you still got rid of them one way or the other. It wasn't a good hire either from the outset, or even if they were there for 6 months. So ROI is incredibly important, measuring the stability of a firm. And it's also because if you have a good ROI, that means the tenure of your attorneys are going to grow, the combined experience of your firm is going to grow, and it's going to really help the firm in multiple ways, in other recruiting and attracting people to your firm as well.
Yeah, I also think it balances out the hyper growth, right? So you saw when you had a couple of firms that grew through mergers, it's now tracking the flip side of those mergers. It's bringing together two different cultures, like you talked about, and keeping the stability. The point of doing the merger is you saw that there's an opportunity to help support your clients with different resources and practice areas, but you got to hold on to those folks. So I think that's important to note when you're looking at it.
Absolutely. Years ago, I did an interview with a law firm expert, and he said only about 20% of law firm mergers are actually successful. Now that was a while ago, but now we can go right into our own tool and we can see exactly how successful those mergers were because we are tracking that. And as people exit that firm in the first, second, third year, you can tell how many of those people they actually retained. And when it comes to a merger, that's really important for the success measurement for the merger. If you can't retain those people, half those people leave, that was not a successful merger.
That makes sense. And I like that you explained why diversity is important. I think everyone's talking about diversity, but you really nailed all the reasons why it's important for the good functioning of any organization. And I think when it comes to increasing the representation of women in the partnership, I find it very interesting. You've got two choices. You can use both of them, but you can hire from without, you can promote from within. And I know we had a great panel last year talking about that, succession planning, the path to partnership and all those kinds of things. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, a good deal, but I think a couple of years ago when we did our state of the industry and we saw that women were really overtaking men, in law schools and being hired by these law firms. And the partnership numbers were not as great. I said, watch out, we're coming for you because we're gonna overtake you in many ways. And I think by sheer numbers, women coming in on the associate level, there's more women there, but we have to get them up into that partnership tier. And that is something that we've been working on with outreach with women, helping them with business development. We did a seminar last year to help them with that. But getting women into leadership has been shown, as I said in the presentation, to be a boon for business in many different ways. And the same for ethnic diversity. Is just a smart business decision. And that's what we hope that these law firms are making. A succession plan, also a very smart business decision. We saw last year a firm that suffered because they had a large defection because younger ranks of attorneys disagreed with the direction of the firm, and that firm paid a big price for that. Other firms saw that and started making changes. We've never seen so many retirements of managing partners as we did in 2023. And I think that's a wake-up call. As the younger ranks are, taking foothold in the firm, they're demanding something else, something more. And they also want to see a future for themselves. So the people at the top have to step aside. So there's a place for these people to go. And that will help with the longevity of the firm.
That's just what I was going to say. It's like with promotion to partner is a smaller weight in our data, but how can you promote to partner if there's no way to promote them to, if you're already chock-a-block there at the top, so it's a smaller rate rank, but it all ties together about stability, culture, growth, and, making strategic decisions over time rather than just reacting to what you need right this second.
Exactly. And you have to hand it to them. They made a lot of strategic hiring decisions last year. The hiring numbers were lower than they were in 2022, but the hires that they made were better because they did have better retention with those hires.
I was just going to add, I think it's important to note that most of these pieces of underlying data are really important to their clients of the law firms. They're the ones that are really driving the decisions that the firms are making now as far as succession planning and who they hire and the how they strengthen their practice groups and ensure that they're strategically supporting the needs of the clients. The clients are asking for this, so it's not just when you're putting together something that's important, the clients kind of dictate what you say.
That's
and
right.
I did notice as I was putting this all together, so we saw earlier in the graph that 15% of AmLaw 200 firms increased their scores. And as I was going through all the different data points, I thought, I keep seeing familiar names here of our clients. And so I do go back to that idea of, and Laura says all the time, you can't make good decisions without good data. And 80% of Leopard customers' scores went up in the average data. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's a great statistic.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping is that they're using their Leopard tools to make these decisions and to see that the overarching need.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's a piece of anecdotal evidence for that. We were in London several years ago and we saw great reviews of a show outside. And it looked great. We're like, we have nothing to do. Let's go see it. So we went and saw it, and it was abysmal. It was abysmal. We got on our phones. Everybody around us was like, what are we seeing? The reviews outside were so great. We got on our phones and it said, oh, this review was done like in 1934. We based a decision on very old data. And, there's firms that still do that today because they're familiar with, another ranking system, or they're familiar with, pieces of evidential, data that they go to. But having really good, hard data is important. I also know there's a lot of law firms that get on the phone and call recruiters and say, so what do you see? What do you say that's going on there? What do you see in your world? Oh, well, Chicago is really hot right now. Well, we can go in our database and look and see if it actually is or not. I mean, anecdotal data will only get you so far. You really have to have, and these are big decisions these firms are making. You really have to have rock solid data if you're going to make a really good decision that you can feel confident in.
Right. And sometimes it's just a narrative takes hold, right? It's a narrative. This is what we talk about within the firm. We've always talked about it this way. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's actually not like that. And I think that's a good point as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on all that is, I mean, we talked about this pretty extensively during the State of the Industry webinar a couple of weeks ago, but the ebbs and flows of the last 4 years, the hyper growth years, the hiring years, and then sort of the layoffs, and it's all been crazy. I think last year was sort of a year where folks, firms really made some strategic hires. They focused on holding on to the key folks that they had at the firm. And you can see that across, how these firms have reacted in their scores. And I think, there was succession planning, there was changes within their approach, looking at groups of attorneys as opposed to individual hires, looking at firms to acquire and merge with strategically. And I think all of that talks about sort of a change in an extremely competitive industry. And I think, data drives a lot of that, but I think also change in the hiring of some of the key administrators and folks that are running these firms as well are taking a different approach.
And I think it's easier to get better retention when you bring a group over, because integrating that group where they already have a bond is much easier than doing that, one by one by one.
Is there anything else we wanted to add today, or any questions from the group? I think Phil's been answering some as we go.
Yeah. Some interest in the badges. When we have top 10, top 20, top 200 badges, and we actually have a press release, a sample press release for those that are interested in promoting the fact that they're on their top 200. Well, we'll be sharing all that with all the folks that are on the list, and we'll be sharing the slides. We'll be sharing the recording of this, and we appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Take care.